Welcome one, welcome all to Round Table Talk. How's everyone doing tonight? Jeff, Taylor,
I'm doing great.
Doing good over
how about you,
here.
Jeff? All right, all right. So yeah,
Losing,
you guys,
losing
you
money,
guys,
losing money this night. That's always a great feeling.
Oh yeah.
what's that?
I said losing money tonight.
Oh yeah, no, it's epic. I'm just,
Burning it and
I'm
burning
just,
it.
I'm watching the markets just like tank, and it's on a Sunday, so it's like, yeah, holy shit. But I'm not worried. It's, it's, it sucks. I'd rather see it go up. But I some of my DeFi is earning, and so I'm just stacking, and when it eventually goes up, and we all know it will, and if it doesn't, I'm stacking bullets, rice, and beans. So either way, I've invested my money properly.
I know. I was in a good position. Like I was 90% cash, and then I went to about. I'm still about 70% cash, but I put in a bunch on Friday after noon, and then Monday I will too because here's one thing that I know that's going to happen. The rich have a ton of money.
Yeah.
They're going to keep putting it in the market. What's happening is really going to suck for poor people.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
No, it's you know, I've been telling people. Well, Taylor, I've been telling people forever that even if you don't believe that something major's coming, for years, I've been saying it's always good to have, some rice and beans, some dry goods. 'Cause you can survive for a long time off of just rice and beans, and if it's good to have because natural disaster, whatever, it's it's better to have it, not need it, than need it, not have it. I'll just say it
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, but right now, yeah, there's some interesting things going on. We get to talk about it today.
Yes. So the topic for tonight is we're gonna keep it kind of lighthearted. I know there's a lot of serious stuff going on. But as a playful way to kind of toy with the idea that apocalypse is nigh, we're going to talk about the zombie apocalypse, and we'll just kind of laugh and joke, have some drinks, smoke a little bit, and I got a couple talking points, and we'll just go over kind of our zombie apocalypse plan. And a lot of us in the military, we joke about the zombie apocalypse, and what we really mean is societal breakdown because we call the unprepared zombies. People that didn't prepare and society collapses. They're just zombies trying to survive. They're just running around looking for brains. So um, it's kind of an inside joke in the military, but um, for the most part, yeah. It's a lot of parallels. Between those zombie apocalypse movies and trying to survive if society collapses. If once the power goes out, and you got gridlock on the streets, so you can't really get around by vehicles, and goods, trucks stop moving, so goods aren't being brought in. Everybody's running around, grabbing what they can, and eventually supplies run out, so you have to start trying to survive off of hunting and fishing and gathering and things like that. So anyway, I figured we could just kind of, like I said, laugh and joke, and just again, it
So
is
an,
what it
inter-
is. There's nothing
an
any of us are
interesting
going to do to change anything that's going to happen in the future. So
an interesting thing that I heard today, which I didn't know, is that between 2017 and 2023, 25% of all utility workers retired. And during that
really,
time, the time uh, for like people's utilities to be fixed went up 7 hours because they have such a shortage. Even apparently, we cannot build nuclear submarines right now because it takes about 100,000 workers to build nuclear submarines, but they can only find a few hundred that have the expertise to be able to do it. So,
Jesus Christ.
so really, like, there's a lot of ways society could break down. Of course, you could have a major disaster that kind of wipes everything out. But more likely a scenario is that the country continues to just get more incompetent at what it's trying to do. So the rising generation, we don't. So it's one of my platforms that I talk about as a mayor all the time. Is 1 out of every 36 kids that are born today are born with autism. And so if you have one, and that used to be in our generation, if you grew up during the 80s and 90s, it was 1 in 10,000. So we're raising a whole generation of kids with disabilities. But what's more troubling is the fact that even the kids that don't have disabilities don't want to go do hard labor work. They want to go and and I don't blame them. It's a lot nicer to go sit in a cushy office like mine. I'm like I don't.
I couldn't do it. I hate sitting in offices, and it's like I gotta be out there using my hands and getting dirty, and
Yeah, you just probably never did it. It's pretty relaxing when you can sit in air conditioning all day.
I just
Not
I
one bead of sweat comes down your head.
I don't know. I can't. For me, it's I
Mhm.
find a lot more. I get a lot more satisfaction out of like physical things. Like
Yeah,
building things and fixing things and modifying something that or repurposing something or for me it's more fulfilling. Yeah, I mean, I think we all have our thing, and for you, I'm sure it's very fulfilling. The services that you provide with
I do
wills
like
and
it,
trusts,
but
and helping people with their a huge part of their life's work. Making sure that they get the max benefit from their life's work, and it goes to where it is they want it to go.
yeah, but I really would love. I really do like building something. Like I understand why people want to do it and find a lot of fulfillment because there's something very rewarding about working on something and then after you're done going, look, I built that. When
Well,
you
look at your businesses. I mean, that's
Yeah, but yeah, like in the sense I built it in the that I pay for the different infrastructure, but there's just something different when it's like you physically created something world. I mean, I create paper, and that's what most Americans do today. We create paper or electronic data, and it's like uh, and that builds into a business. Of course, I have this building and different things, but it's just not the same as, oh, there's a house sitting there because I built it.
well, there's not too many people these days that
Mhm.
can say that they built their
Yeah,
house. That's not a normal thing these days.
I know, and it's one of those things. But the reality is like we don't have robots yet, and we do need people to do that work.
Yes,
And if we
agreed.
like, right,
So,
go ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna say. So my question is, well, first of all, to get on the topic for this evening, we need. Speaking of building, we need to get we keep saying it. We need to get to work building you a bug out place. If it's up here or closer to you or whatever, we need to get you hooked up because you know if shit gets rough, you definitely want a comfortable place to be.
Yeah, I know I need to figure out something. I just don't like. The problem is like there's nothing close around here, and then the thought of going, how the hell would I get to Washington? It's like I can't fly or anything.
You just need to get your private pilot's license, and like I said, then I mean, if everything goes to shit, people aren't going to be missing a plane.
Gosh.
I'll just get Tim, and I'll just uh, we'll have him steal a plane for us.
Well, he was already saying that he was going to his place. I won't dox him, but he already said he had his place, a state or two away that he was going to.
Yeah, that's of Missouri. I don't know how good that's going to be.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe Tim is an outdoorsy dude and he can survive. I don't know. It's like,
He probably can. He's definitely he's handy. He knows his stuff.
well, that's good. That's good. So yeah, we just need to get you and the family set up. But so yeah, let's let's try to move it a little bit light and we'll start out with let's decide what kind of zombies we're dealing with during this apocalypse. Are we dealing with the leg dragger zombie, or are we dealing with the rage virus
Mm.
Olympic sprinter zombie?
Dear God, I hope not the sprinter zombies because that's a
Oh,
lot more
dude,
fun.
I really hope that we don't get the rage virus Olympic sprinter zombies. Those fuckers suck.
Yeah, that's guaranteed. You're dead. You're
I don't think
done.
Oh,
anyone
dude,
does.
yeah. I mean, I can't. These days, as old as I'm getting, I can only run a couple miles and I'm done.
Yeah, but I think the more reality of the situation of what we are definitely seeing the federal government dying right now. If you're not
Would you say
aware
it's
of,
becoming a zombie?
it's almost it definitely is zombie type. It is just like really if you think about like compare the government to your body, okay? Your body only functions because all the cells in your body make the choice at every given time to do their job, right?
Yeah.
If they don't do their job, then if your gut decides to wake up one day and go, "We're going on strike," you're in a really bad position, right? Well, the problem is we treat cells in our body that don't do what they're supposed to do as cancer. Like if you get cancer cells and your body can't get rid of them, it will slowly infest the whole body until it takes it down. And that's basically what's happening at the federal government right now. It's almost completely cancerous, that whole organization.
Oh
It's
shit!
Mhm.
You know what? I totally spaced out shouting out the chat. Yeah, it's they have some interesting comments here.
oh
So real quick, we got Seth Shepard. Welcome, brother. Welcome. He's so yeah. No, I definitely looking for some either possible reentries or just ways to freaking buy as much as I can as fast as I can.
with how much
Um,
the future's down, just wait till later afternoon Monday. You might see some spots to get in then.
the real Collins. I go back and forth with this guy on X all the time. He seems like a really good dude. We politically do not see
Mhm.
eye to eye on most stuff, but he's very respectful and very knowledgeable. So I actually really enjoy going back and forth with him. But he says
He's not
your
trolling you, is he?
401k is just a 401. Oh, we got Sack Nasty in here.
Yeah.
Maybe a maybe a stepmom will show back up. Who else we got?
She
Looks like
might
we
be
got
under
it.
my desk. Cannot verify.
Oh, yes, yes. Sack Nasty stepmom's under your desk. Yeah, the market won't turn around immediately. You'll have a lot of time to buy. I tend to agree with that. What are your thoughts, Jeff? Like on the markets.
Oh man, I think it's definitely a good opportunity to just at least dollar cost average. I mean, I'm now that I'm moved into my new place, I'm gonna have a lot more dry powder here soon. And I actually took some stuff out of the markets last month a little bit to help pay for some moving costs. So I kind of lucked out on this
Nice.
nice dip. So I'm just kind of chilling right now. Yeah, once I get my security deposit, so that'll be a nice little
Chunk of
dry
change.
powder to put in. Yeah, but
So so
I'm going through my taxes right now, and I forgot that I have my plume on one of the exchanges for my airdrop. I have like
that's right.
750 plumes, so I'm gonna send that over and throw it in a liquidity pool
I'll
tonight.
I'll shoot you over my wallet address. You can just shoot it over to me.
Yeah. Just give me a little nice 10-15% off that.
Right, right. Yeah, I'll invest it for you. So yeah, I'll be like those scams. It's like just send it to me. I'll double it for you.
I'll double it.
So I'm gonna ask a question. We'll go around the horn, and then I'll we'll hit another zombie question. But so what do you think is Jeff? What do you think is going on in the markets right now with what Trump's doing? How do you feel about it? And do you feel that there's a lot more pain left, a little more pain left? Are we about to turn around? What are your thoughts?
I hope we turn around soon. I mean, we've kind of taken a lot of pain, but I don't know, the tariff thing. I mean, I've been listening to all kinds of different points of view, and I think it could be negotiation. I don't really know because it's a whole lot at once, and he's
So
reneging
let me
some
ask you
tariffs,
this. Let me ask you something a little more pointed. So, people depending on who you talk to, Trump's tariffs are either a 3D chess game of
Mhm.
negotiations. He doesn't know what the hell he's
In some
doing, and he's about
industries
to
it's
crash the
benefiting,
market.
some it's not. So it depends on what industry person you're talking to as well. And I mean, if other countries, well, I mean, what's the argument for other countries tariffing us, um,
It's a valid
and us
question.
not tariffing them? And what's the disadvantages of us putting out tariffs, at least a baseline level? What do you say, 10, 15%?
Well,
I
let's
mean,
let's
what's
actually kick
the
this over to Taylor because I know that he's very
yeah.
knowledgeable about this stuff. So,
All right.
what are your thoughts, Taylor, on
So there's
y-
there's
well, let me frame it a little bit.
okay.
So, they like Trump is on a lot of countries. He's doing like a 10% tariff, like on a lot of the countries like that produce coffee and bananas. There's smaller countries, and then China. I think he hit with like 35% or something like that. But what are your thoughts on how these tariffs are being rolled out and the potential effects that it could have?
Yeah, so let's first start off so Trump does believe that tariffs are the way to go forward. He believes this mainly because we have a big problem in this country, and that is we do not make anything. I don't if people aren't aware of this. It is a big problem when your country doesn't make anything like its pharmaceuticals or anything like that because you rely on other nations.
Mhm.
So he does believe that this is the way to go forward. The question is why are they doing it so aggressively so quickly? Because this is a very poor way to roll out tariffs. You don't just throw it on the whole market and throw up on everything. It is definitely an intentional mechanism because there's a bigger problem going on that no one's talking about, and that is that we have to refinance $9 trillion. That's at the average rate of that $9 trillion is about 3.2%, and it's going to jump up to 4.5% if the market doesn't crash. But there's even a bigger problem underneath that, and it's the reality
God damn
that
it.
there is not enough money that is in out there to refinance $9 trillion. Like there right now, there isn't even enough money to go around to buy mortgages. So if there's not
Mhm.
enough money going around and to buy up the debt for mortgages, what are we going to do when it comes to this $9 trillion debt? So I, what they are, what I believe that they're really attempting to do is they are crashing the market, forcing money to come out of stocks to go buy bonds, saying
Mhm.
that's a bad investment, and that is the major reason why they're doing it so aggressively at this point right now. Now, uh, overall, we have a really big disaster forming, and it's not for the rich. Like I kind of disagree that we have a long time kind of situation. I believe we've entered a different era in the market. The rich have so much money now. We have printed so much and given so much money to the rich that they can sway markets back and forth. And if you look at the chart, I mean, you see these swings going up and down constantly in the market now. It's so volatile at certain periods because the wealthy hold all the money and they can pull in and pull out, and you see this game being played of fear and getting people like us scared, so we pull our money out and then they buy everything up and run up the market again. The market's going to go back up because it's the rich playing ground. They're just going to throw their money back in, and they'll drive up the stocks again. What the tariffs really are going to hurt is the regular folk, us, that go out and try to buy goods. It's going to be, I mean, food, you're probably not going to have that big of a problem because we can produce everything in America with our food. But you're definitely going to see all the other things that you like, cars, housing,
Clothing.
clothing. That's all going to go up a lot more, and it's going to cause a lot more pain on people.
Absolutely.
The really big issue, though, the bigger issue that people kind of forget and understand about the whole point of government and economics. Economics works on one thing: trust, belief. That's it. The reason why your dollar, when you go and hand it to somebody and they take that dollar, the only reason that works is because you both believe that dollar is worth something. The fact that Trump's administration decides to come out, expose that the whole federal government is a big old Ponzi scheme, and they're taking all your money, which is what we want. We want them to be. I want to know this, and I want it to get out there. What I don't want you to do is expose everybody as committing fraud and big old waste in a Ponzi scheme on the American public, and then not go out and arrest anybody for it. That's a big.
I'll tell you, that's the big thing that's bugging me right now. Is I
Mhm.
mean, they've just been going gangbusters, and I'm all for scaling down government and finding fraud, waste, and abuse, and getting rid of all those line items where they're being wasted, and then and I'm all about reciprocal tariffs.
Well,
We
first
need
off,
to.
they're not reciprocal tariffs. They're
Well,
tariffs.
hold on. I'm not
Again,
saying that's what they're doing. I'm just saying I'm all for reciprocal tariffs. If somebody's going to
yeah.
tariff us, I'm all about matching that. But it feels that like a bull in the china shop is, I guess, the best way to describe it. Right now, I mean, the first
Mm.
3 months, Trump is just, and I'm not saying that what he's doing is bad per se. I just think the execution could be polished a bit because
Oh, yeah. It's really going to have to be
they're
possible.
doing too much too fast.
Yeah, because the problem is like, okay, you just exposed this Ponzi scheme on us. You're not really doing anything about it, and now you want to throw a bomb in the market with tariffs. You really want to undermine the trust people have in the American or the world has in the American economy. You got to scale that back if you're going to do it. You got to come into this and go, okay, we're first off, here's the fraud, and this is how we're fixing it. We've arrested 3 or 4 senators that have been involved with this, and like, whatever, or congressmen. Go after the top people. Do not go after these, like, oh, we're going to arrest some random guy that's committing fraud. Well, it's like, okay, you can't expose that these NGO issue that we have, and billions of dollars have been made by Congress, or I should
So
say,
so
millions.
so Jeff has been lurking in the background like a freaking peeping tom. Are you there, Jeff?
I'm here.
All
I'm
right, all
here.
right.
You're gonna keep
I
that
All right.
joined
camera
late,
off.
but I'm here.
So, what are your
Um,
thoughts? I mean, you're definitely more steeped in the in the markets, being a financial advisor and all that stuff like you are. What are your thoughts on what's going on with the tariffs and in government right now?
I think, oh my gosh, that's a loaded question. I think part of, and I don't know if this is a personality trait. I don't know if this is done on purpose. I do think a lot of people that are big Trump fans are trying to find, the 4D chess and all of this. I feel like, honestly, I feel like Trump at the end of the day is a CEO, not a president. And what I mean by that is he's used to saying, do this, and he gets done, right, in his businesses. As a matter of fact, I read a book after his first term, talked about how so many times um, his chief of staff or other advisors would have to be like, well, no, technically we got to, you got to request Congress to do this, and then Congress is going to submit that, and then this is going to happen, go to this committee, and he just has no patience for it or really understanding of how it works. And I don't mean that as an insult to him. I don't really have an understanding of how it works either, right? But the challenge with a guy like Trump is he doesn't care. He's going to do it anyway. So where I think the really big risk that nobody seems to be talking about, I mean, people are talking about it that I follow, but nobody's talking about like Main Street, is our adversaries do have a nuclear button economically, particularly China. And what that nuclear button is they could dump our treasuries tomorrow. They
Yeah.
could dump trillions of dollars of treasuries on the open market, which would immediately cause
I
our
think I
treasuries.
think Japan has a shit ton as well, don't they?
I think
Yeah.
they do. I mean, yeah. I mean, the whole world. I mean, so here's where I get really offended by this whole thing. And I'm not saying that like we shouldn't have countries treat us fairly, right? But people forget. So making this an analogy, imagine if I have some value, something I can do that you care about. Like, let's say I don't know. We both know I can't build shit, but let's say I could have built your cabin, right? So I do. And let's just say I built your cabin
That
for
would have
round
been
numbers.
interesting.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to live in it, that's for sure. But let's just say I was able to build your cabin, and let's call it 100 grand for easy math, right? This is what a trade deficit is from the American perspective, right? So, or rather, I apologize, I'm screwing my own analogy up. You build me a cabin, so you're China. You build me a cabin just like yours. I'm like, man, I really want a cabin like that. So I give you 100 grand, and you give me a cabin, right? Because you can build the cabin less expensively and more efficiently than I can myself, right?
Yeah.
But then I turn around and I go to you and I say, "Hey, Mike, you know what you should do with that 100 grand I just gave you? You should give it back to me for safekeeping, and I'll keep it in my cabin.
Mm.
But I'll pay you a little bit every year to make sure it's safe in my cabin." We have to have trade deficits if we want to be the reserve currency of the world. Because what we do is we buy goods and services from the rest of the world, primarily goods, right? From the rest of the world. We give them dollars, and they can only do two things with that, really. They can, three things. They can buy American goods and services back, they can buy oil, or they can put it on deposit in the financial institutions and invest it in the stock market or invest it primarily in treasuries. They literally keep it in reserve. And why do they do that? Why do people want our dollars? Because we're the biggest economy in the world, and we're the biggest military in the world. And it's not even second place is not even close to us in either metric. So you know that our money's stable and it's secure, and that the rest of the world will take it if need be. So other countries want our dollars because it stabilizes their financial system. But the way they stabilize their financial system is they buy our treasuries. So we're literally, again, going back to my analogy, it'd be like if I'm like, well, shit, I need to borrow a lot of money. I know I'll buy a house from Mike, and I'll structure it in such a way that the only good choice he has is to let me borrow it back from him. Right. So it is not, it's called, if you look this up, you can actually call, politicians have called this for a lot since World War II, our exorbitant privilege. It's because we're the 800-pound gorilla that everybody else just kind of has to deal with it. It's why we get to run the deficits we get to run. And so
Well,
I don't know
it's the only
why
reason that
he's
it's the only reason that we've been, kind of living high on the hog as long as we have.
100%. And so what I'm very concerned about our federal deficit, like our debt. I don't really give two shits about our trade deficit. Now, that being said, I do agree with Taylor that there could be sort of a higher order behind the scenes look. We're going to say all this BS, but really we just got to make the market correct because we got to get rates lower. I'm not saying that's not necessarily true. And I get that they can't just admit to that. Where I lose faith in that sort of 4D chess maneuver is when you look at some of the shit they pulled off with this tariff. I mean, guys, I'm sure you've seen it on Twitter and other places. One of the places they tariffed is an uninhabited island that only has penguins. I'm not making that up. That's for real. There's another one place they tariffed that is a country in a very tiny country in Africa that happens to give us, like 30 million a year in clothes.
Well,
But the average person only,
there's a McDonald's Islands.
oh, there's that island, that Nauru Island, right? Like, dude, literally. So, but it's like the average citizen makes $5 a day. So of course they can't afford to buy American shit.
Yeah,
But we
but
want to buy their cheap stuff.
yeah,
Why are
but
we tariffing that? We
yeah,
don't care.
Jeff, they actually explained why they did that. because apparently they can trade through those like a fake. They can use it as a fake way to trade with America.
They
Like
can use it as a way station. Yeah, I mean, but see, you can create. But to me, what you do on that is you just say, "Hey, we do have AI now, right? We're just going to
yeah,
trace source materials, and we're going to trade it back to the source." But
yeah,
we'll see. I, I don't know, but guys, right now, Japan just hit a circuit breaker on their market.
yeah,
Like it's. I do think here's the only good news to anybody listening that's really worried about the portfolio. Historically, not always, but historically, when the market goes down to an acute event, think 9/11, think the 87 crash, think the Japanese 2011 tsunami, where it, like the Fukushima disaster, right? The nuclear plant. Usually, when it goes really, really far down, very, very, very fast, it's usually a relatively quick rebound. The challenge is this is completely policy made, right? This is not an
yeah,
asshole flying a plane into a building. This is not a tsunami. This is not um, what happened in 87 was just basically one gigantic margin call that basically occurred because of derivatives. But in 87, the market actually was up for the year. And in 2001, the market finished higher than it was on September 10th. So it doesn't mean that necessarily the world's ending. What we need to hope for, though, is that he does find someone needs to offer our president enough set of deals from enough countries that makes him look like he achieved something significant, so he can then be like, it was all part of my negotiation,
So he can
right?
save face.
So he can save face and get us back on. Because if not, like the thing that Taylor and I've been worried about, separate from this stuff, when we have our kind of talks over lunch and other things,
Well,
is
you guys are talking about this stuff all day long. I mean, when I
all
was
day
there
long.
visiting, when I was there visiting, for those couple of weeks, recently, I mean, I sitting in that little back office, I could hear Jeff from like all the way down the hall, because, and
Well,
yeah, and you were always talking to people about, hey, because people are worried, and a lot of them are living off retirement and they're getting ready for retirement and things like that, and they were asking you, hey, how can I mitigate my risk, how can I make sure that I'm set up, and I listened to quite a bit of what you told them, but Jeff, what?
I take no responsibility for any of that, but I will say as my last little comment and hand it back to you guys is what Taylor and I are worried about before all this drama the last week or 2 months, really. Like, we see stuff like consumers are farther behind on their mortgages and their auto loans and their
Oh,
credit
and
cards
credit
than
card
they have
debt.
been since '08.
Yeah.
And that's pre-tariff, guys.
yeah.
What's going to happen? Right? We all
The
remember
o
'08,
the only thing I can think of that would bring some relief to that is if they lowered interest rates.
which is going to happen based on what's going on right now.
They're gonna have to. I mean, it's the only way out that I see personally.
Well, they tried. I mean, they cut rates in September of last year, and the bond market revolted and said, "Yeah, we think there's more risk in the market than that. We're gonna charge higher rates, not lower." I mean, just because the Federal Reserve cuts rates doesn't mean that the markets are going to follow. But
Wasn't that what he was
now,
trying to get Powell to do? Is force him to cut rates by crashing the markets intentionally?
I mean,
That's what
that's
some
the
people are
argument,
saying.
right? The
Yeah.
unspoken or the conspiracy theory is, look, he's just going to make it to where Powell has no choice but to cut rates every single Fed meeting, and eventually the banks and the bond markets will
Actually,
follow. And I
I'm
think
actually
the difference
I'm
is
actually glad you said
that
that because
yes, if you cause enough
'cause
pain on Wall Street, plenty
well,
of people will flood into
listen,
bonds, all right, which bids the
Donald
prices
Trump
of bonds
Jr.
up, which makes their return lower, which makes it
Well,
where you don't have to
Trump
offer as good
Jr.
an interest
actually
rate
just
on new
tweeted
bonds to get
out
people to buy
this
from you.
past
So
week.
that part may work, right? But here's the other thing: we can't cut rates too fast, or we'll do the
Mhm.
same thing we did the last 5 years, which is have ridiculous asset price inflation, right? And pretty soon people will be getting 3% mortgages to buy $2 million houses, and it just doesn't. We need what we need is a long-term slow normalization back to real returns, both in the stock and the bond market, back to housing that people can actually afford relative to their income. And I don't think there's really a quick fix for any of it. So he just basically, you know, pulled the pin on a grenade and threw it. And
I'm trying to find
it's
it,
either
but
going to be
Donald Trump
an
Jr. the other
absolute
day,
unmitigated
he actually
disaster, or
tweeted
it might
out
end up being brilliant, but
that
nobody knows right now.
Jeff,
Now
Except
would
for
be
it
a
Jeff,
sucks.
now
Jeff,
would be a good
Jeff, can
time
you
for
hear
It's
us?
certainly
rate.
scary.
I don't think Jeff can hear us.
I don't think so either.
Jeff, can you hear us at all?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, you just keep talking over everybody.
Well, I wanted to put an exclamation point on what he was saying because Donald Trump Jr. the other day actually said something similar to what Jeff said. Was that he tweeted out basically to the Fed, now would be an excellent time for rate cuts.
That just went away for like 30 seconds.
Can you hear us now, Jeff?
I can hear you now. I can hear you
Okay.
now.
All right.
So basically, I wanted to put an exclamation point on what you said, Jeff, because Donald Trump Jr. The other day he actually tweeted out. It was a very simple tweet, and it just said, "Now would be an excellent time for rate cuts, Powell."
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I mean, the reality of the problem is I think Jeff hit one thing on the head of the biggest problem is that Trump does run the country like a CEO, and you can't do that. Like you cannot just take whole markets, whole nations, and everything, and go, we're going to do this idea, and just dump it on everything, and go, look how brilliant I am. And now the rest of the world really has to play this game where they're going to have to look like they bow the knee to him, so he can turn to everybody and go, look, everybody, listen to me. And that's scary. That's scary when somebody's doing this because it can really F over everybody's lives because they have this narcissistic personality where they just do not listen and they think they're always right. Like it's fun and entertaining when he's your guy, but when he ruins your life because he does it, that's a whole different game. And the reality is like China could go F you, America, and pull their treasuries, and we're really screwed then.
I do think, and to kind of piggyback on Taylor's too, not that he isn't going to, it hasn't done or will do in the future other things that are good. The problem is anytime he does something good, he's going to feel like that's because of him. Anything that's bad, he's not going to take responsibility for it. So I think of some of the panic in the markets, in my opinion, is not directly related to the tariffs. It's rather the tariffs are evidence that for the first time, maybe ever, your portfolio is more controlled by one person's whims, good or bad, right? Because you might pass a crazy good tax bill or something, but good or bad, your portfolio is much more decided by whether or not he decides to tweet something at 3 a.m. than whether or not you own good companies or you're diversified or the economy is doing well or anything else. And I think that's what's scaring people so much, right? It's not like this big geopolitical sort of like, well, here's where jobs are at, and here's where rates are at, and here's where, you know, AI's growing over here, and this industry's shrinking, and here's the demographics. No, it's just like, oh, he decided to do something, and now I'm literally, if tomorrow holds right now, 15% poorer than you were Wednesday morning. That's
Yeah, well,
crazy.
and like you didn't worry about that with Joe Biden because I mean he could get up there and ramble the craziest thing in the world, and no one cared because
Like, no
they knew
joke.
he
No
wasn't
No,
joke.
running
no
the
one,
country.
no one took him serious.
So
No one
All
even
right.
understand him.
maybe
So,
Sleepy Joe wasn't that bad of an option.
oh, honestly, I think it's kind of in the wisdom of the founders. I think it's why they structured government the way they did was to keep things from getting done, with the checks and balances, to slow things down because of people like Trump. It's like they get in there, and then, like I said, I'm not saying that I don't like Trump or anything. There's things I like and things I don't like, but the I think in their infinite wisdom, they were like, we don't want a king that can just broad brushstroke everything that he wants to do whenever he wants to do it. It has to go through this slow grinding process of checks and balances. And supposedly, I mean, back then people were a lot more intelligent, and they it wasn't a popularity contest and things like that. So they focused more on things that mattered. But the information moves so fast these days that everything has to happen fast, or everyone loses interest.
I think
But
it's the most concerning thing about all this to me is and I understand, to be fair, and I can't believe I'm going to say this because it's not where I feel right now, but I do think it has to be said, quote unquote, to the credit of the administration, if this is a negotiating tactic, right? They have to act like it's not, right? But one of the more frustrating things I've had, and I think this is why the whole world's so confused, is out of one side of his, and I say his mouth, I'm talking about him and his minions, his talking, his administration. Out of one side of his mouth, he talks about tariffs are going to get us a great way to raise capital. You know, we're going to get rid of the IRS income tax. All this crazy stuff. And on the other hand, it's about making a deal and negotiating. Well, here's the problem with that. At the end of the day, you can either have one or the other, right? You can either keep tariffs in place and have it as a source of revenue, good, bad, or indifferent, or you can have nominal or no tariffs and get good deals. But you can't at the exact same time have and not have tariffs, right? So it's a that's what disconcerts me, because I really have no clue what they're really heading towards, right? And that's the stressful part, because you have no idea how to plan around it, because you don't know what the end game really is.
all right, so as a transition, I'm going to ask just a really lighthearted question, and we'll transition into another topic. So if a zombie apocalypse happened and you had to build your dream team, I want to go around the horn and we'll start with Crypto Jeff. What is the single person that you would want on your dream team in a zombie apocalypse?
Shit. Someone that we know?
Just
'Cause I don't
anybody.
think I could.
It could be freaking George Washington, the 7-foot ginger with wood teeth, with a sword in the woods, freaking terrifying the British.
Terrifying. I
Well,
don't
dude, that
think
would
he
have been
would be fast
scary.
enough to move for a zombie apocalypse. Um, shit. Well, someone that would have to have some survival experience, tactical skills, because I haven't gone through a lot of survival
Zombie
training.
apocalypse is here, man. You got to
But
pick quick.
yeah.
All
Oh
right,
my
we'll
god.
come back to you, Taylor. Who would you pick?
Walter White probably
Who's Walter Wright?
from Breaking
Walter
Bad.
White from Breaking Bad.
Oh, is he going to make meth for you?
No, well, one, he's a chemist, so he understands
Okay.
chemistry. But I want the guy that would do anything, kind of ruthless person, because
There you go.
he,
All right.
with like an IQ of 190 kind of guy. Like you
So
want that
you want the mad scientist. You're looking for the mad scientist.
because I mean he's going to do whatever it takes to win, and and that's what you need in a zombie apocalypse, because he'll understand exactly the the depth you have to go to keep people alive.
I think Crypto Jeff froze up. All right, Texas Jeff. Who are you picking?
Can I go with the mountain from Game of Thrones?
Oh yeah.
All right.
I'm
You
not.
can
I'm
go
not
with
sure how I
whoever you
keep
want.
him fed, but I feel like he keeps the zombies away from me. So
Oh,
That's true.
so Jeff says Chuck Norris. He says
No, Shepard said that. I was like, that's pretty good. Chuck Norris.
K Jam says Bear Grylls. K Jam says me and Druth. That actually probably wouldn't be a bad idea. Druth
Mhm.
has the homesteading thing down with the chickens in the garden and
Yeah.
stuff, and and we both got the firearm skills and survival skills. So I'm
oh yeah,
thinking
I
I would.
almost just said you, but you're too far away.
It's true.
Michael's not ruthless enough though. Like
Well,
Michael is a
you
peace loving
you've
happy
never
guy.
seen that side of me.
I know,
Yeah,
but
we
still
haven't
at
met him
the
in
end of the day,
Afghanistan.
you would you would try to do the right thing. That's the problem. In that kind of a scenario, it's all about like you would be
Not
like
always. It's there's like when it comes down to protecting those that you love and
well that's
and
exactly my point. You would try to protect the people that you love, and like but like in ruthless scenarios you have to be like whatever it takes, even sacrificing your own to make it to the next level.
Oh, it's. I mean, yeah. There's
You
there's
would
many layers, but
yeah,
anyway,
you would
Yeah.
Hey,
sacrifice
I've seen The
yourself.
Walking Dead. I just don't want to be in a zombie apocalypse, so I'm probably just gonna like, if that
dude,
happens,
that would be
I'm eating some rat
Christmas.
poison or something. I don't know.
That would be like Christmas, man. If I woke up and it was a zombie apocalypse, I'd be like, yes, finally. It's like it's like
I'm
life would get.
useful again.
Well, yeah, it's like life would get so much more interesting. But
Uh,
All
so I don't know.
preparation that I
Honestly, like I think my pick would be to like fill like skill sets that I don't have, personally. I mean, I have some medical training and obviously, military training, firearms training, some survival skills and stuff. But honestly, I think that I would want somebody that was like a mad scientist, kind of like what Taylor was talking about, was good at fabrication, metal fabrication, mechanic, like our brother Robert, and or maybe somebody that was like really good at gardening. Somebody that could just freaking grow anything in anything. Because food, I mean, I can handle shelter, I can handle security, but if you can't feed your group, you're done.
hmm
I would pick
Look at K Jam's comment.
me. I'd pick Jeff with a
Oh,
bunch
parachute in,
of
bet.
weed and cocaine, and we would just have a great time
Oh
until.
my
Oh,
God, we would have such a
dude,
great time.
if you had a mad scientist that could make grow barter items like that, like grow
Oh,
weed and grow heroin, all kinds of stuff.
Oh,
Yeah, dude, grow poppies.
well, we would just have a great time until we died.
I like it. I like it. All right. So, I kind of want to ask Jeff and Taylor this question. So, watch your guru. I have it up on the screen now. The other day, 2 days ago, I guess $3.25 trillion got wiped out of the stock market, and 5.4 billion was added to the crypto market that day. And there's a narrative that's going on right now in crypto. And they call it a flight to safety. Some people call it that, and some people are speculating that because of the tokenization of real world assets, RWAs, stocks, treasuries, real estate, things like that, they're projecting that a lot of liquidity, now that regulation is being drafted, is going to start to flow into the crypto market, into these RWA projects like Ondo and Plume and things like that. What are your thoughts on that, Taylor?
So first off, I don't think people understand like how bad really the American financial system really is, and how scary the dollar really is, and like because we're really not adding value of actual, like, companies aren't becoming more valuable. The reason why the stock market is going up is just inflation, and it's constant inflation that's happening. And so finding something else where to put your money is becoming more and more of attractive option. And really, the problem with crypto right now is that everybody can go create a freaking coin and claim that it does all this amazing stuff. Where it's like really the only utility I'm seeing like is the fact that Bitcoin and some of these other projects that you talked about, they actually offer significant value into the system. Um, but the fact is, Bitcoin looks like the most attractive place to put your money right now, because even like people go, "Oh, I own a bunch of gold." Oh, well, you own a bunch of gold that you don't really own the gold. You own GLD, which is indexed towards gold. But that's all based on the dollar system, and they
Well,
constantly like.
well, honestly, even if you own physical gold, because I mean, I own physical gold and silver, and it's a great barter item for somebody that's right there in front of me, but it's not liquid.
Yeah,
In the world that we live in, and that's where the RWAs come in, is they make illiquid assets liquid. So gold, silver, stocks that you can only trade through a broker, or you have to wait for the markets to be open, all that kind of stuff. Real estate, is this long, arduous process of, if you want to loan or if you want to, buy or sell, or, it's this big, long, and I know Taylor understands it. He has a title company. But when you start tokenizing these assets, it makes them highly liquid to where 24/7, 365, if I have a piece of property that Taylor or Jeff wants, you know, then we can instantly, create a smart contract. As soon as the funds hit my account, then the ownership of the property transfers. And you can have a lot of hooks in these smart contracts that certain things have to happen, to have it progress through the process. And then once that checklist is complete, it releases ownership over to the other person. And so, that is, why I personally am so bullish on RWAs, like Ondo, Plume, and many others, is for that one simple reason. It's really the strongest use case that I currently see for crypto is RWAs and DeFi.
I
Yeah.
think so. I have two comments on that. One is just kind of silly, which is we should totally tokenize ammo. That'd be awesome. But two, um, a strategy that I used very successfully for about a decade with my clients, although I got out, I haven't done it since 2020 because they finally overbuilt the space, and everybody on the in the podcast will know because they've all got one within like a freaking mile of their house. But I did a bunch of storage units. When I say I did, I mean I had my clients invest in institutional funds and invest in storage units, right? And it was great. Like they paid like a 7% dividend every year, and then like at the end they would sell the storage units to some institutional buyer. And like so, I remember my first one I did was like a 5-year hold. I did it in 2008 and 2013. They gave my client like a check for double his money, not counting the 7% he made every single year while he waited. Fantastic. However, they've now kind of normalized and aren't what they used to be. But the challenge with it though is every now and then I have a client that was like, "Hey, I need to get my money out of this," and it's like, well, your money, quote unquote, is in a fund that doesn't trade on the market, right? It's private equity, and it owns, I don't know, 47 storage unit sites around the country that each have 2 to 300 units. So you actually own, 0.02% of 5,000 units or whatever it is.
Well, imagine if that
And
was tokenized,
that's my
because
point is the reality is I used to have to tell people, hey, look, when they sell this, they're selling all of it. So the reason you can't get your money out is they're not going to sell 3.5 units to somebody, right? That would have been a perfect use case for tokenization.
oh yeah, fractional ownership, 100%. If you had a 100 storage unit facility, you could have it, where there's, basically 100 shares, or, 100, ownership portions, and you could buy one, two, 10, all 100. And then if you needed money, you could sell, sell two of them, take out a loan against a couple of them. There's a lot of different things you can do, and it's, almost instant. As soon as there's somebody, you could put it on a market or an exchange, and as soon as somebody was willing to buy it, you would make the money. Or if you just took a loan out on it, it's a couple clicks, and there's liquidity pools like the ones that me and Taylor and Jeff are doing, where the liquidity's there, just waiting to lend out, and you just put that up as collateral. You take out the loan, you pay interest. Whenever you pay it off, you get the ownership back. I mean, stay owner of it, but it unlocks and allows you to take out another loan, sell it again, whatever.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. I
No,
think that's
it's
coming.
no, it's definitely coming. I mean, I can go on and on and on about the companies that are spearheading it, but I won't. Um, have I told you about my Lord and Savior DeFi?
It feels like the great migration from TradFi to DeFi
I just think
in a
TradFi is
way.
evolving. It's just this is going to integrate into the traditional financial system, and it's going to evolve it. It's going to force evolve it. All right.
Mm.
So next question. All right. You have to choose a vehicle for the zombie apocalypse. What vehicle are you
Ooh.
choosing? It can be anything. It could be a helicopter, a plane. It could be an MRAP, a tank, whatever. What are you picking?
Dang.
We
Open
saying
forum.
helicopter because zombies can't fly, right?
Well, you guys have a pilot. Freaking, Tim's a
I
pilot.
mean,
Not a helicopter pilot.
that makes sense to me.
But you got to fill that thing up with gas. That's the problem. Like,
Well,
we're
all
getting.
of them you got to fill up with gas.
Yeah, but you got to fill up with helicopter gas, whatever that shit is. I don't even.
Helicopter gas.
You gotta fill it up with
Man, you know
helicopter
what?
gas.
Hardly
We
nobody's
all
got
know
a
how rare
helicopter
that
gas
is.
these days.
So rare. I've never even heard of it before. So, I have no idea what you would do with that thing. It's like I would imagine whatever those freaking things you guys use to drive around in Iraq with.
Yeah, that's an MRAP.
Yeah.
The big armored. Honestly, I think I would want a bush plane. Those ones that can almost like take off and land like a helicopter. That they use up in Alaska. I think I'd want one of those because you could get around like really good and get
Oh
supplies that way.
no, I would want a big old yacht, dude.
Actually,
Yeah,
that's
those motherfuckers can't swim. That's for
yeah.
sure.
So it's like you just live on that thing.
unless it's the Michael Phelps zombie.
Yeah.
Oh,
They're swimmers
shit.
now.
You're like, son of a bitch! You just fucking ruined my whole yacht plan.
I do know what weapon I want, though.
What weapon do you want?
I want a flamethrower.
You
Oh,
want to watch
shit.
them burn?
No, that's a terrible idea. Then you're just gonna make a bunch of Molotov cocktail zombies. A bunch of flaming zombies that are gonna be running around.
Well, I was assuming they would turn to carbon dust eventually.
No,
Eventually, but
after they grab onto you when they're on fire.
yeah,
So that's why I need to be in my helicopter. God, you guys are not paying attention. I've got this all figured out. I'm going to land on my yacht, and it's going to be great.
You know what? If I had a helicopter pilot, we could collaborate. We could have Taylor's yacht. We could have a helicopter pilot. Is if the yacht had a helicopter pad, that would be awesome.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and actually,
Can we just get an island? Would they be able to make it to the island eventually, or would they?
well, once you cleared the island,
This
you'd
is
be
a good
good.
question.
Unless somebody died. It depends on what kind of virus it is, because you know how like in Walking Dead, everybody has the virus, and if they die, they become a zombie. You would just have to have some sort of protocol that if somebody was sick, they were locked up. I mean, like they were taken care of, but they were locked up somewhere to where if they churned, they couldn't like run around and start biting people.
Yeah. Well, can the zombies walk underwater? Like if they could walk to the
In Land of the
underwater
Dead,
to
they do.
the island. Well, I guess if the
Well,
fish wouldn't eat them first, right?
well, that movie Land of the
But
Dead,
then you're going to have fish zombies.
they were on an
Fish zombies,
island.
yeah.
Well, they
Fuck.
were on an island in that movie Land of the Dead, and the zombies went into the water and walked on the bottom of the water and then up out the other side.
Jeez.
Yeah, that would suck.
I guess that would slow them down. You'd have more time to pick them off.
Oh no,
I
absolutely.
love the fact that Crypto Jeff's like deep and thought about this. He's like,
Yeah. Oh,
shit.
yeah.
You know what? You got
How do we
to.
make this? How do we make it work?
Well, it's like investing or crypto. You have to have your game plan ready to execute at all times. You have to
Build that
know.
barrier.
Yeah, you got to know.
Oh man.
Was it the North Koreans that landed in Red Dawn, or was that the Russians?
The first
In
Red
the
Dawn,
80s?
it was the Cubans that were backed by the Russians. The second Red Dawn, it was the North Koreans backed by the Russians.
I mean, we probably don't have time today, but obviously we got a game plan for those scenarios too. I ain't too worried about the Cubans; they don't got shit. I mean, neither did North Koreans, but North Koreans probably want to leave their house and come over here because it sucks so bad over there.
all we have to do with North Koreans is give them phones and porn, and they'll just be completely inept.
They'll be totally distracted. They'll forget what they were doing.
They'd be on those things like, "What is this?"
We'll just give them OnlyFans. We'll just give them OnlyFans.
Give them a Samsung with a VPN so they can see Pornhub and be like, "This is what they make in South Korea."
Oh shit.
They'll be like, "Holy shit!"
Where'd my lighter go?
Has anyone been to North Korea at all?
I lived in South
No,
Korea for a year.
I mean, I don't think anybody. You don't want to risk going to North Korea. That's a. They might not let you back out unless you're Dennis Rodman.
But yeah.
Yeah.
No, so yeah,
Oh, Michael froze right now, right in the middle of his thought.
Oh.
Stack Nasty is willing to have sex with a zombie to see if it's secure.
you have like the solar and
That's the type of person we need on our team. All right.
That's
Stack.
what's your expertise? I'm a zombie fucker.
Oh, they have a red dawn in Australia. That'd actually be an interesting one.
well, I wouldn't be worried about zombies down in Australia. I'd be worried about the critters that live there.
Yeah.
Freaking giant poisonous spiders and snakes and everything else.
That's where you would want a flamethrower.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but not for zombies.
Yeah.
For all the critters.
There's I don't know what it's actually called, but there's a plant. It looks just like almost like poison ivy or something, like just like a little tiny little fucking leafy plant, right? That's native to Australia. It's only found there. And if you touch it, like it kind of like almost like a touch a jellyfish or something. If you touch it, you get this poison on your skin, and even after you wash it off, you will have reoccurring nerve pain attacks up to 9 months later.
Oh
Ugh.
shit.
That whole place is designed to kill you. I'm telling you.
Are you talking about
It's a
Australia?
crazy, crazy place. If you look at the
honestly,
map, if you look at a map at night, like literally, like you can like chat GPT or Google like in Australia at night, you'll notice that only the coastline's lit up. The interior is completely dark
oh
because it's
yeah.
nothing but shit
Oh, yeah.
designed to kill you.
No, I went to Australia a couple times in the military to train with their military, but yeah, no, it's a cool place, but I'll tell you, it's like God created the rest of the world, and he was just like bored, and he's like, "What kind of fucked up shit can I make and dump on this last island?" It's like you got like the platypus, and all kind. It's gonna be part beaver and part duck. It's like, and I'm gonna give it like a poisonous spine on its foot. It's like just made up weird random shit. It doesn't exist
Some
anywhere in the
angel like
world.
taps the Lord on the shoulder, like, "Sir, what about this place?" And he like cracks his knuckles. He's like, "Just watch."
Well, well, it's like he took the leftovers. Like he had like some leftover beaks and some leftover, beaver parts and like a tiger and a dog and made a freaking Tasmanian devil and he just like hodgepodged a bunch of
Pieced
shit
it
together.
together.
It's just like,
But it
like
did give us Margot
Mr.
Robbie,
Potato Head.
so it's still a good place in my opinion.
Oh no, I
Yeah.
love this Australia. Great people. Again, yeah, it's an awesome place.
Wasn't it where they sent like
There's a
convicted
penal
felons, or was that
colony.
New Zealand? Oh,
No,
No,
yeah,
it's
the
Australia
prison
Aus-
was
colony.
a
yes, it
British
was a penal colony for
Yeah.
the British Empire. They're like, screw it, we're going to send them half around the world because this place will kill them. And
Well,
then
they
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 just
wanted
bred and made
they
a bunch
wanted
of
to
pretty people.
populate it,
Just
but
made them
nobody wanted to
hard.
go there, so they sent all the convicts.
That's crazy.
Think about how hardcore criminal you got to be if you're sent to a penal colony and you still are a criminal. You know what I mean? Like you're still like a criminal to them. You got to be like, oh my god, this guy's such a dick. He wouldn't follow the rules here.
I think back in the day, I would have been a pirate.
Oh, that would be great.
That would have been awesome.
So you just want to be at sea for months at a time with a bunch of unwashed men?
That sounds like heaven.
He wants to go steal some booty.
Yeah, man. Get some treasure, get some gonorrhea, some syphilis, maybe.
Nate's got a question in the. He says, I think it's 30-06 or 270.
Hold on,
I think is
what's
what he's
what's that?
asking. Look at this the question that Nate just dropped.
I'm
Nate
not
Dogg.
seeing it. Was an OSAN for a year is the last question I got.
Oh, no. Let's see here. He says, serious question, 30/06 or 270. I assume he's talking about rifles, right?
Yeah, he's talking about caliber. I'm huge on 308. I love 308 Winchester. Big reason is it's a common round. AR-10s use it. Remingtons, bolt action Remingtons. The M40 platform that's used in the military as a sniper rifle is a 308. All the ballistics charts that I've ever used for long range shooting or in the military for decades was 308. So it's a round that I'm familiar with. So pretty much all my personal weapons are either 308, 5.56, and then pistol. I have a mixture just because you never know what you're going to run across. And
So,
shotgun.
as someone who doesn't know anything about guns, it's always been annoying to me that like you have different rounds that you would think are bigger than other rounds, but they're not because it seems like the naming system is completely screwed up. It's like it's like when you go to Starbucks and it's like a small is called a tall, and then a medium's called a grande, which means big,
It's
and then a large is called a venti, which also means big. It makes no sense,
And I'll
right?
be honest. I mean, even with as much experience as I have with firearms, there's a lot of it that still confuses me. I'm not a huge gun nut, believe it or not. I'm very good with them, um, but I don't get into like the technical aspect where there's a lot of people that they can tell you everything about different ballistics and if it has this many grains, this is the muzzle velocity, and they'll just go on and on and on. I just does it go bang, and can I put the round where I want it to go is really all I care about.
Yeah, yeah. I think I might go from the mountain to Michael. Might have to pick Michael for the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Mhm.
Me personally, I mean, I obviously have my little setup and, and I have really good neighbors. It's
They're called
it's a really
trees.
good well, it's a really good place to be in, to where it's like if nothing happens, I'm living in paradise, and if something bad happens, to be honest, for the most part, it's gonna impact my life in a very minimal way. I have neighbors where I can get honey, I can get, the property next to me has a bunch of cattle, I got deer, elk, moose, and I have fish, in all the lakes around me. I got a bunch of food storage. I got a wood burning stove. I have, I'm finishing up a my plan for hydroelectric, so I'll have power. It once you start getting into that,
Yeah.
realm, you really just kind of whatever happens, happens. You don't really sweat it too much.
Because you can shoot a cow with a 308 if you need to.
Oh, you can just walk up to it and shoot it in the head with a pistol. It's like you don't need to shoot it long range. It's not a deer or an elk. You can walk up and pet it and shoot it in the head.
One, how awkward that'd be. Hey, you guys want some burgers for dinner? That sounds great, Mike. Next thing you know, you see him walking across the field with his gun. Oh my god. Okay.
Fresh.
All right. So I'll throw this last question out, and then we can just kind of freestyle until everybody has to go. We're a little bit over an hour now, but long term survival. Actually, you know what? Well, actually, you know what? Let's go with this one because I think it's something that a lot of people can relate to. Because I know the three of you, live in a pretty urban area. Um, what is your plan? I kind of want to do a little test here. What is your plan? Like if things got really bad, if you saw that there was something like really serious happening and it was going to be, at least 30 days or longer that we were going to be feeling the impact. Would and we'll go around the horn. I'm going to start with Taylor. Are you going to try to survive in place and ride it out where you're at? Or are you going to try to get the hell out of Dodge and go somewhere else?
Well, I'm trying to get my city to realize like we have to come up with a plan.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, I know. But like at the end of the day, that's the best chance of survival is as many people as you can get together to do something. Like a whole city can do a ton versus just a small group. But at the end of the day, uh, to be honest, like Mike, I mean, you're far away in different things, but large enough group of people come up there looking to take your stuff. If you don't have other people helping you, you're
They I mean, they have to go through a lot of people to get to me, and,
yeah,
I mean, with all my neighbors and stuff like that, I mean, there's a bunch of retired military up here, retired police. I mean, it wouldn't take much, and I've already talked to some people where, we would organize quickly, and I've already done, like, assessments of the topography, you know, egress and, ingress routes of, how, which the more likely avenues that they would take to get into our area. And, we'd set up checkpoints,
yeah,
where you have armed guards basically with radios and, we'd have, primary, secondary, and tertiary, layers of security to where, even if they get through one, that's the early warning, they lay some fire, bug out, because they, obviously they're not going to fight a larger force. They bug out to the secondary, reinforce that position. They do the same thing, skirmish, take a bunch out, maybe take out a couple vehicles, fall back to the third, and then that's where the main force, by that time, all the reinforcements have arrived to that third line of defense, and then
yeah,
that's when all hell breaks loose. So, no, I mean that's like again, I mean all the units I was in the military, that's what they did was guerrilla warfare tactics, small unit tactics, and so I'm well versed in that stuff, and that's my plan. I mean, I've thought it all out.
yeah.
Like I said, pick Michael.
Hmm.
So
I've
so
got
yeah,
my only I if it's nuclear, it doesn't matter. We're too close to DFW, we'll just be incinerated. But um, I did get like 90 days supply of like dry food goods, right? The last like 25, basically MREs. So I got that. Um, I thought about getting like a gravity filter for like rainwater. I don't have that, so the water might be an issue. Um, I don't really. I mean, when you live, the reality is, if something happened to such a degree to where it would spook, let's say Taylor and I to like leave, everybody else is going to be spooked too. And it's the roads are gridlocked for days, right? And everybody runs out of gas, and it's just I don't know how much opportunity or options there are for people that live close to major metropolitan areas. I mean, we're pretty much reliant on the systems that keep everything functioning. I remember I mean, one of the things that I freak out about, I shouldn't say freak out, this stresses me out. Like, if I was China, let's say China really wanted to go to war with us. Like, I mean, we're legit. I'm not worried about them dropping a bomb. I'm worried about them simply hacking our water supply and our electricity, just turning it off. Right? I mean,
that's a real
you could,
threat.
you could take,
Hmm.
yeah, you could, or EMPs, right? You could take over, or you could do
Well, they were
massive,
flying.
massive
Well, they were flying
damage.
balloons. They were flying a bunch of balloons over us not too long ago. I mean, they very easily could have a small device
Yep.
on there to to detonate in the atmosphere and set off an EMP that would fry our the electrical grid in different areas. You do. I did some calculations on it at the right altitude. It only take about 7 or 8 of those to take out a good portion of the United States.
Oh, 100%. I mean, actually, I read an article that said one thermonuclear in the high enough atmosphere could actually
Mhm.
blanket the United States with an EMP if they wanted to do it that. Now, the challenge is how would you'd have to have like a satellite that was disguised or something, because obviously we're not going to let something be launched and not respond. But
Or any number of those balloons that floated over us and, we did nothing about.
which is crazy. But my point is simply though that one of the things that has made us so vulnerable, besides the fact that the vast majority of people are like me, right? I don't know how to grow anything. I don't know how to trap anything. I'm a 21st century person,
But you
and
can learn. I mean,
not
you're a
saying I
smart
can't
dude.
learn. But even if I could learn, what sort of trap in McKinney, Texas, if I could rabbit? But
Well, I mean,
that would go away real quick with this kind of population. But what I'm getting at is that there's not. there's not a whole lot of optionality because we've designed a society to only operate on optimal conditions. And what I mean by that is, and we saw this during COVID. Do you know that the average grocery store only has 2 days worth of food on the shelves at any given time because it's just in time
I
inventory,
I do.
right? And they do that because of profit, right? Reduces spoilage. They only order the shit that they're selling the most of. I mean, I get it from a business perspective. But if it hits heck, we had Taylor problem. Was this like a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago? We had like a gas scare around here for some reason, and you couldn't. I don't know what it was. I don't even remember what the cause was or the
No.
theoretical cause. But you could not get gas within like 30 miles of McKinney for like 3 days. And if you didn't have it, you were getting it. They were out. It was out everywhere. So we're very people. I don't think want to think about it because we're very powerless to really do anything about it unless we have kind of the freedom you've got, Michael. But most of us that live and work in major urban areas are we're very vulnerable to anything that interrupts the status quo.
Let's kick this over to Taylor because I think he's experiencing this at a very macro level running for mayor. Is he's been speaking to a lot of people, in his city, and doing a lot of public speaking, and having you know uh, open houses, at his offices and stuff like that. And he's been trying to tell people that there's a lot of things to worry about, and the sky isn't necessarily falling, but we need to think about mitigating a lot of these risks that we're talking about. Power outages and things like that. And Taylor, if you could, share with us, some of the feedback that you're getting from people.
So yeah, so about two and a half months ago, I decided to run, and I went off of basically I was running off of my platform that change is coming, and there was three things that I picked that I was really concerned about. One is the economy that we have, the debt that we have, the housing bubble that we're in, the fact that inflation is so significant of a problem. The other is the demographic issues. We have 10,000 people a day retiring that, and most of them are going into retirement without the ability to actually afford it. 1 in 36 kids are born with autism. And now the immigration issues that we're having, which is the fact that one, immigrants are not coming to America, which we require because we don't have enough children. But two, you're going to the illegal immigration, which is a big problem. But the problem is we don't have enough workers to do the hard labor jobs. And then the last is the really big one, the big disruptor, which is AI and robotics. 50% of all white collar jobs are predicted to be gone in the next 4 years or displaced. They're saying we hope that it just changes into something else. Those three things were terrifying to me, which I thought were significant problems. If you were to tell me and go back in time that 2.5 months later, those aren't even the big concerns. I didn't know about the big concerns. One is Doge uncovering the fraud, abuse, and waste that's going on. That basically our whole government is a big, gigantic Ponzi scheme, the federal government. And that Trump was going to implement tariffs on the whole world in one foul swoop. I had no idea how bad it was going to get this quickly. I was thinking maybe 6 months to a year, we would start seeing some of the bad issues. So literally I go in and I start telling people how bad it is. And every time I speak, everybody's like, you're fear mongering, you're scaring us and everything. And I'm like, I'm like undercutting what I really think how bad it's going to be to try to make it sound not so bad. So I'll go speak at these events, and usually it's only a few people will come, mostly guys. They'll come up and they'll be like, I work with AI, or I'm so and so. Like, I know what you're saying, and what you're saying is completely correct. So this last, basically, I basically Notre Dameist exactly what a message should be if you're going to win an election, right? Started 2.5 months ago, said all this crap was going to happen, and now it's happening. I look like freaking Notre Dame right now. And so at this last speaking thing, I get up and talk. And this was the first time that people didn't really come up to me and go, "You're scaring people. You're doing all this." But two guys came up to me. One guy came up to me. He was wearing the shirt of my opponent. And he goes, "I'm going to be 100% honest."
Was it Big Cox?
Yeah, I won't reveal. I don't want the guy kind of be outed because he came up to me and was like, "Hey, if my friend wasn't running, I'd be voting for you. You're saying exactly what I see that's happening." And he goes, "I'll be honest with you." He goes, "They came to me asking me what I was talking about. They have no idea what you're talking about. What are all these changes that are really happening?" And it's funny, like I went to the Dallas Morning News. I told Dallas Morning News exactly what my message is. They endorsed another guy, and all they did in my line for me was, "He's an elder law attorney that's 43 years old." I'm like, talked about all the other candidates for like 2 or 3 paragraphs and gave me a one sentence. And I'm like, nobody is listening to me.
No, people do not want to hear the truth.
Yeah.
If it's scary, people like honestly, it's really sad. It's something that I've run into for years. I mean, when I first moved up here, I mean, Taylor, you probably remember. I was always telling everybody, emergency preparedness. I had that emergency preparedness business while I was still in the
Yeah.
military, and I was telling people, I'm like, get ready. Even if nothing happens, an ounce of prevention, having even a week's worth of food and water is the difference between life and death in a really bad situation, a flood, a tornado, a hurricane, whatever, economic collapse. That's a buffer that allows you and your family to survive while you're out looking, for more supplies and, meeting people and, getting your group of people together because you never know. If some of this stuff happens, it's going to happen relatively fast and it's going to blindside a lot of people. And you're going to get what we in the military call the zombies,
Well,
the millions and millions of people that did not prepare, and they're going to be running into grocery stores like with that toilet paper thing during COVID, fist fighting over toilet paper. Imagine what people are going to do for a can of beans after they haven't eaten for a week or two.
yeah, and that's the hard thing for me right now is what I'm dealing with is like, um, is like what I've been saying is happening right now, and I still can't get people to listen to it. It's like people just get this tunnel vision, and it's like that boogeyman's not there. He's not there. It doesn't really exist, and I'm kind of like, well, if I can't get this to you in this way, because all my opponents are talking about is like, we're gonna make this place wonderful, like it's always been, GGG. It's like you're sitting there going, no, that's not how the future is going to work here. It's going to be a
Well,
massive amount of change that's going to be required.
and maybe you need to change your narrative to one that gets you elected so that you can get into office and actually do the things that need to be done to protect the blind and the deaf
I
from.
Yeah, the hard part is I don't have the backing to do that. Like I'd either have to spend $200,000 of my own money, which I'm not going to do. Like I'm not going to go spend 200 grand of my own money to try to convince you guys. It's your job to pay attention to the message. And I'm kind of at the point is I know what's happening. I'll be just fine. I'm going to make it through it.
Well,
McKinney's going to go through a really hard time.
absolutely, and I agree with Seth Shepard. Right here, this is on the same topic. Agree with Trump or not, like Trump or not. There's a lot of things I don't agree with, but he has balls and he's doing things that need to be done. I don't necessarily agree with how he's doing it, but we are in a
He's at
really
least
bad
doing something.
position. Well,
Yeah.
but we're in a really bad position. For decades we've been kicking the can down the road And we've been, like Jeff was talking about earlier and Taylor was talking about earlier, where we've been living, kind of off the labor of, the post World War II era, generation and what they built, with the dollar being the reserve currency and the petrodollar and, the influence that we have overseas and things like that. And it's coming to a head because our government got so bloated and spent so much money and we're in so much debt that we're in a hole that just keeps getting deeper, and they keep digging it deeper. Even if they stopped spending money, it's still getting deeper. So, you know, love him or hate him, he's doing something towards the end goal of trying to fix this. And people talk about, well, if Kamala got in, it wouldn't be this bad. It's like it would be business as usual, and it would be
until it
getting
wasn't.
much, much
Yeah.
worse.
Right. Gentlemen, I gotta go.
Yeah, that's true. Oh,
But
gosh, I gotta go.
All right.
but
Well,
It's almost
closing
dinner
thoughts,
time.
real quick. Closing thoughts. Jeff, go so you can take off.
well, I just hope that for at least for our current state of affairs that Trump finds a way to navigate through the eye of the needle on this and pull some things back so that we can kind of get a little bit of relief, because otherwise tomorrow's going to be real interesting. Beyond that, I just know I got to find a way to get to Oregon or where the hell Washington or wherever the hell you are in case the zombies come. So that's my plan. But
Well,
you guys,
you and your family are welcome up here anytime. I mean, we
I appreciate that, brother. You guys have a great night.
you too, brother.
Bye.
All right, Taylor, what do you got for closing thoughts?
My closing thoughts are it's going to be a lot crazier than this over the next year. We're just starting with things, and we got so many more other bigger things. And this isn't just this year. We got so many issues that need to be solved. And there's a way, there's a path to solve them, but it's going to require our economy to keep functioning. And so hopefully it doesn't collapse on us, because if we don't have AI and robotics functioning over in the next couple of years at a very high level, the pain's going to be a lot more than it would need to be.
Absolutely. Jeff, what are your closing thoughts?
Don't over leverage. Don't
Yeah.
over leverage. Get some survival training and and stack dry goods and water. Find a way, because that's one thing that's got me really thinking is how can you get enough water to last? I mean, that's really staying hydrated and stuff is gonna save you. You can go for a while without eating, but if you don't have a way to transport water or store water, you're fucked.
I'll give you a life hack when you're done.
Mm. But yeah, that figure out a way to get enough water to last you, or find ways to barter with people. But that would be one of the first things, other than having an evacuation plan.
All right.
Rule of
So here's
three.
my quick closing thoughts. So what you said and what Sack Nasty said, rule of three, are part of it. Rule of three is you can go 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food, and 3 hours without shelter, and depending on the climate and stuff like that. That's the rule of three. Water, is obviously shelter is important depending on the climate, but water is probably the most important. If in your house, if you have a tanked water heater, all you have to do is if everything goes to shit, there's a valve that you can shut off that cuts your house off to the city water. You want to shut that off immediately because what it will do is keep your water that's in your pipes and in your hot water heater from getting contaminated. Because if the
Mm.
water treatment becomes contaminated, it's going to spread through the system. So you want to shut that off. You after you fill up anything you can, fill up jugs, fill up the bathtub, fill up whatever. You also have the hot water heater. Most hot water heaters are about 50 gallons worth of water. So there's a spigot at the bottom of it. you have 50 gallons of water sitting in your house at any given time. So that's a hack for you.
Shit.
So, those of you out there, keep that in mind. Um, my closing thoughts are make a plan. If, either you're going to survive in place, if it's a short-term issue, if it's a long-term issue, you're going to want to have some kind of bug out plan, especially if you're in a rural or urban area. You're going to want to get somewhere, rural where people have farms, people have livestock, for long-term survival. I would highly suggest you at least have, 72 hours, if not more, of, food, medicines, medical supplies. Start small, beans and rice. It's cheap. For under $100, you can get a week or two worth of beans and rice for you and your family. Again, I told you where to get water. You're set for, a decent amount of time. But
Mm.
do something. Do not sit back with rose-colored glasses thinking that nothing is ever going to happen. Hurricanes happen, tornadoes happen, power goes out, wars happen, economic, woes, happen. Things happen. Get rice and beans, things like that. You can use them on a regular basis, rotate them out. When you do your regular grocery shopping, you just plus it up. You date them and you rotate through them to make sure that they stay good. But do something. Do not sit back and act like nothing is ever going to happen. Even if it doesn't, you have food. You use it, you replace it. It's not that hard. And it's going to pay dividends if something does happen. Because if you have a family, I've seen it around the world and all the places I've been. The suffering that happens when people are displaced and people aren't prepared
Mm.
or we're unable to prepare. It is ugly. And you don't want to be watching your family, going hungry and going without water. It's it's not a position you want to be in. So I'll end with that. I appreciate everybody in the chat and everybody watching. Um, we try to keep it light, but we try to sprinkle in some seriousness and address some of the hot topics of the the past week. But if you could, please like and share the stream. We definitely want to get more people thinking about these kinds of things because it's important. Um, it potentially could save somebody someday. So
Hmm.
again, thank you. Appreciate Jeff. Appreciate you, Taylor. Appreciate you, Texas Jeff. I hope you're not doing gay stuff because you had to leave early.
He's
But
gay.
we'll talk to you next time. Veteran Crypto out.
All right, talk to you.
Listen.